The South Carolina Hall of Fame was founded in Myrtle Beach in 1973 to recognize and honor contemporary and past citizens who have made outstanding contributions to South Carolina's heritage, history, and progress.
On March 21, 2011, a special dedication took place in Lake City, South Carolina, for a former public library that was renamed after a local hero, an important pioneer, and a courageous American. The Dr. Ronald E. McNair Life History Center is a tribute to the astronaut who inspired others to follow their dreams.
Why we're here today, and it's to celebrate the life of a great American, Dr. Ron McNair, my very good friend and a person that I owe everything to, because I would not be standing here today were it not for Ron.
Thank you so very much. It's been a long time. We have been working towards Ron's memorial and the things that we have developed, and the statue, the wall, the memorial, the building. This is so wonderful. You know, Ron would be so very, very honored.
Well, first of all, I think Ron McNair is a really compelling individual. He's got a really compelling story. He came from rural poverty in South Carolina, attended segregated schools, but managed to make something of his life. He managed to earn a PhD from MIT and then become an astronaut. I mean, what a very interesting and compelling story for people about perseverance.
Ronald Irwin McNair was born on October 21, 1950 in Lake City, South Carolina, and in school quickly stood out as someone special.
He was unique, and the uniqueness of him, that he was typical. And the typical part was, you know, he wanted to have his recess and socialize with other students. But the atypical part was that when he finished his assignments and whatnot, instead of going and picking on other students and whatnot, he didn't do that. He tried to find something else to read because of the fact that Ron McNair just had a passion for learning.
When Ron was a student in Lake City, he went to the public library to check out 2 books said to be on the subjects of advanced science and calculus. He was denied because of his race. Defiantly, he sat on the counter and refused to leave, leading the police and his parents to be called. In the end, he was allowed to check out the books, but for Ron, it was not about taking a stand against racism and segregation.
Ron McNair never talked about segregation. He just wanted to fulfill his dream. Ron McNair didn't even come here when he checked out that book to say that, well, I'm coming here, but I know they were going to deny me. He didn't have that in mind at all. All he wanted was the book, you know, to fulfill his dream. That's what he wanted.
After receiving degrees from North Carolina A&T State University and MIT, Ronald McNair was selected by NASA for the new Space Shuttle program.
Ron McNair really liked to motivate people. He liked to talk to everybody. He liked to shower people with attention. People here at NASA, all the way from the flight crew operations directorate down to the janitors. He talked to everybody. He thought everybody was important. So he was a really big motivator and just a very special person from that aspect.
Ron was bigger than life. Ron was a little guy, like me. In fact, he was smaller than I am. Ron was incredibly fit. He was a 5th-degree black belt, an accomplished jazz musician. He played the saxophone. Ron was just an incredible human being. I don't ever remember Ron saying no to anyone who asked of him something, you know, particularly kids. He was bigger than life.
Ron's first flight was STS-41B on the Space Shuttle Challenger in 1984, where he became the second African American to fly in space.
Well, STS-41B is pretty significant because it's the first time we see man become a satellite. Bruce McCandless and Bob Stewart took the manned maneuvering units out and tested those units without umbilicals. They tested them in the payload bay, and then they flew out about 50 meters and tested them. And Ron McNair took that very famous shot that we see of Bruce McCandless out there in deep space.
Why don't we zip them up to about right? About half-mast. Okay, good.
Ron McNair's second mission was again on the Space Shuttle Challenger in January of 1986.
What I'll do is introduce the next crew member, and we'll just go down the line and let everybody say a little.
We look forward to launching from the Cape first of all, and returning here a few days later. I had the privilege of being a part of the crew a couple of years ago that made the first landing here at the Cape, and I intend to be a part of the crew to make the first return landing to the Cape in about a week.
6, we have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Shortly after liftoff, a failure in the O-ring seal on a solid rocket booster led to a catastrophic explosion, resulting in the loss of the vehicle and crew.
The best we can do is remember our 7 astronauts, our Challenger 7. Remember them as they lived, bringing life and love and joy to those who knew them, and pride to a nation. They came from all parts of this great country, from South Carolina to Washington State, Ohio to Mohawk, New York, Hawaii to North Carolina to Concord, New Hampshire.
Well, I think when you think about the legacy of Ronald McNair, you really have to look at the Challenger accident itself, because that's become part of our cultural memory. If you were around at that point and you ask someone, where were you when the Challenger accident happened, it's kind of like a Kennedy moment. People remember where they were and what they were doing at that point.
We saw this, liftoff, and then this plume, and we were just stunned. And we hoped that what we saw wasn't real, but we knew all too soon that it was real, and that Ron and his 7 crew members had been just suddenly taken from us. He and the rest of the crew were personal friends of mine, and that kind of loss and sacrifice is something you never forget.
Ron McNair is remembered in so many different ways. He's remembered by the renaming of schools, the memorial out at Arlington Cemetery, the Challenger Centers, for instance, that were established by the Challenger families after the Challenger accident. Their mission continues to live on through the Challenger Centers that were established.
25 years after that fateful day that we lost the Challenger and her crew, people gathered in Lake City, South Carolina to dedicate the Dr. Ronald E. McNair Life History Center. Originally the public library that had denied Ron those books because of his skin color. It is now a place of learning, reflection, and celebration of a hero who still inspires generations today.
What I really would like people to know about Ron McNair is that a young man with an humble beginning. He worked in the cotton field, tobacco field, and whatnot. He overcame the barriers of segregation and went on to become an astronaut and a hero for this nation.
I would love to have the people of South Carolina know that Ron loved the state of South Carolina, was passionate about Lake City. He always talked about it with a certain sense, you could see it in his eyes. I would like for them to know that he was a person who was not afraid to take risks, but that he made sure that they were very measured risks. He knew exactly what he was doing when he flew in space. He was proud to do it, and I think if he were able to talk to any of us, he would say that he hopes that his legacy is a continuation of exploration for humans beyond low Earth orbit and deeper into our universe.